TBH, I feel like Bonnie is a Mary Sue, and I hate it. Alright, so I don't think people know what a Mary Sue is. A Mary Sue is a character who is naturally talented with no weaknesses, no character flaws, and undergoes limited to no hardship, and I would say that that is the exact opposite of Bonnie. She has been hit with nothing but hardship until this very moment. She has ridiculous character flaws that get her into dire situations where she constantly needs to be saved by others, and seemingly can't achieve anything without the help of someone else, in this case being either Luffy or her father Kuma, which I think is fair enough since she's a child. But all of this is to say that one power-up does not a Mary Sue make. Although, to some extent, I do get it. Something I love is that Mary Sue is actually a term that spawns from Star Trek fanfiction. And looking at this situation out of context, it is a bit like someone created their OC and found a convoluted way to make them the strongest character in the world. But that's not actually true. And a lot of people seem to have this very shockingly solid impression of Bonnie's new power, despite the fact that we haven't actually seen her use it yet. And I think the impression is best epitomized with the following comment. The idea that a 12-year-old girl is suddenly just as powerful as the series protagonist, who spent 1,000 plus chapters going through a world of training and fighting and learning, is pretty lame. And look, I agree, if that were the case, that would be lame. If Bonnie was just able to swoop in and instantly become another Luffy, that's not amazing. But right now, I think people are very much conflating power with freedom, or freedom with power. And honestly, that's a fair response, because typically in shonen manga, that's how it would work. Generally, a transformation, it signifies a common level of power. Like your classic Super Saiyan. If someone achieves the Super Saiyan form, then the point of that form is that they have achieved greater power. And I do think that Dragon Ball is a fantastic example of this, because it did very much set the stage for child characters achieving what took adults decades and decades of training and hard-fought fight battling to access, and very much cheapened the Super Saiyan experience. So I could be wrong, but I don't think that's what's going on here. Because this form is all about freedom. Bonnie didn't say, give me a Kaido beating Luffy Gear 5th-ish future. She didn't even request for a Nika-ish future like the time before when she beat Alpha. In this case, Bonnie said, give me a future where I'm like completely free or something. So it's not like Bonnie is instantly able to access Luffy's entire moveset. It's not like she's instantly achieved his level of strength, speed, haki, and Devil Fruit mastery, if indeed she can access his Devil Fruit at all. I mean, she'll almost certainly have some sort of fun combo attack with Luffy against the Elders, simply because that's the fun thing to do. But I highly doubt that she will or will ever be able to fight anywhere near Luffy. Again, I could be wrong, and if I am, then we'll go into it more at that time. But right now, I think that what Bonnie has achieved is the ability to live the way she wants to live. Nothing more, nothing less. And being free means different things to different people, such as the freedom to have this fictional pirate content sponsored by Watcher of Realms, a next-gen fantasy RPG available on Android, iOS, and PC, celebrating its first anniversary. Good for them, but what about you, person watching man on the internet? Well, this particular anniversary is focused entirely on you. Watcher of Realms are committed to giving you more. More heroes, such as 2 new anniversary heroes in Nora and Ymret, a famed power couple who use the power of dragons to dragon your chances of victories against them down to 0. But that's not enough, because you deserve more. And what I'm thinking is Dahlia, the Queen of Roses, set to destroy you with pure flower power, or my personal favorite hero, Lust. And I would explain her special characteristics, but in this case, I think that they are on very clear display. She certainly gives you a lot more than most, but it's still not enough. So Watcher of Realms is giving you a new limited game mode called Tower of Celebration. They're also giving you more than 34 crystals with your daily login, 2 free legendary heroes, and free skins. That's 2 free legendary heroes, 2 being more than 1 and 1 being more than none. And if none is what you have right now, then I'd highly recommend taking up Watcher of Realms' mission to give you more by clicking my link in the description or scanning the QR code on screen and downloading the game. Oh, and I almost forgot, there's even more. Watcher of Realms is holding a website event where you can get Amazon gift cards and in-game rewards. Can't believe I almost forgot, because I love rewards. But really, who am I to stop you having more? Especially since it's thanks to sponsors like Watcher of Realms that we're able to bring you more fictional pirate content as often as possible. So give it a go. I've been having a lot of fun with it, but for now it's back to you, me. Again, being free means different things to different people, and so that freedom is going to manifest in different ways. For Luffy, his idea of freedom is becoming the Pirate King, and part of that freedom is having the power to beat up anyone in his way. And remember, Luffy actually enjoys fighting. Whenever we think of Luffy fights, the temptation is to go to the greats, like Luffy versus Lucci or Katakuri, those super serious slugfests. But back in the early days of One Piece, Luffy was having the most fun when he was fighting. Even against Arlong in the context of Nami's story, he was being a complete goofball, because that's what he likes to do. That is how he feels free. But to Bonnie, her idea of freedom is much more simple. She just wanted to travel around the world with her father. She's not gunning to be the pirate king or to save the world, and she has limited, if any, interest in combat. Everything she does combat-wise is out of necessity. She has her own desires, her own will, and I don't think she's going to use this form in the same way that Luffy does to instantly become an unstoppable cartoon god. So I do think we should all chill a bit before we start throwing around terms like objectively shit writing. I actually think that people should stop using the word objectively in general, because most of the time what people mean to say is subjectively. But also maybe take a moment before throwing around accusations of, say, Oda fell off because a 12-year-old girl is now as powersome as the series protagonist, because that's not something you can judge from a single page, and it really shows the uglier side of reading manga weekly. Because people are so quick to make judgments about entire arcs and even the whole series based on an isolated chapter experience without knowing or considering the bigger picture. Now, to be as fair as I can, I do think that some of this is on Oda himself, because he did conflate the idea of the sun god with Gear 5th. We don't generally call this Luffy's Nika form or Luffy's sun god form. We say, it's him using Gear 5th, and Gear 5th implies power. So I can see why some people are seeing Bonnie in this form and making that connection. And I'm not saying that Bonnie isn't stronger at all. She almost certainly is, but we simply cannot judge what kind of power she has at the moment. And I think a good comparison I could probably draw right now would be to use Momonosuke. He's in a very similar situation because he has the exact same ability as Kaido, the strongest creature in the world. And it makes Momonosuke a true OP force to be reckoned with, but he is still nowhere near the level of Kaido. He's 8 years old and theoretically has access to Kaido's entire dragon moveset, and so you could make a similar complaint and say, mate, this 8-year-old automatically has the power of an emperor, but he doesn't, because he doesn't know how to use that power, and that's because we read the manga and that's how we know it. He doesn't know how to use that power, and also he'll be using it differently in his own way. For another overpowered child, I'd also single out the 16-year-old Shirahoshi, who has probably the single most devastating ability that an individual could wield, who I only bring out to say that superpowered children, they are a very common feature of One Piece. So much so that we have now at least 3 of them who are going to be key to bringing about the dawn of the world, but none of them have in any way come close to all of these worries about supplanting Luffy and cheapening his power up. And I don't think that Bonnie is going to be any different. And something that I do find very encouraging is that I took a community poll, and the people who dislike and or hate Bonnie's transformation are less than 10%, which is still a pretty big number. Although interestingly, it's pretty much the exact same ratio as people who were displeased by Gear 5th when it first happened. I took a poll back then because I love polls. I love the way that they cut through the vocal minorities and give us the actual impression of the fan base. And the hate percentage of Gear 5th is the exact same hate percentage of Bonnie's transformation now. Both of them sitting at exactly 3%, which I find incredible that it is smack bang the same, but also it's not too surprising. But the like and neutral percentages are also pretty much exactly the same as well. Approximately 70% in favor and about 20% remaining at neutral. And by the way, shout out to that 20% of neutral people. I think it's always the best idea to just sit and wait to see what happens before you form an impression. But to use my old age to speculate, I'd also offer that we're just in that part of the One Piece arc cycle. At about the 2-year mark of every arc that's run for that long, there's a part of the online community that starts to get a little bit restless, a bit fed up with the weekly experience. We want things now and we want them the way we want them and not what you're doing, Oda. And they're much more easily irritated than they were during year 1, where everything was new and fun and no one's agendas had been defeated yet. It happened with Dressrosa, it happened with Whole Cake Island, it happened with Wano, it's happening now, and mark my words, it is going to happen with Elbaf as well. Something stupid is going to happen, and a very loud 3% of people are going to complain about it. I wonder if Bonnie being able to access Gear 5 is thanks in part to the powers of the Nika fruit itself. Brilliant. So I didn't even consider that, but that could definitely be part of it. Especially since Bonnie isn't able to achieve this until after Luffy says that he believes in her. He says that she can, and then she does it. Because if Luffy believes that something is possible whilst he's in Gear 5th form, then it just tends to become possible. So it could be less of Bonnie being overpowered and more that this is just a completely overpowered duo. Love how low-key, even if Kuma passes away, the last thing he might see is the daughter he fought so hard for with the hero he grew up being inspired by. And that right there is the heart of everything. When looking at these final 2 pages, yeah, this stuff in the middle, it's cool and everything, but the real meat is right here with Kuma sitting up, looking into the sky and seeing both of his dreams simultaneously coming true. And what I really like about this is how vague Oda's keeping it. He still has yet to confirm if any part of Kuma is still alive. And to be honest, I'm not sure if I want that confirmation. I'm a big fan of seeing panels like this and reading as much or as little meaning as you want into them, So you can look at Kuma and believe that he's watching Bonnie, or you can look at it and see the remaining shell of tragedy, because finally everything he wanted is happening, but tragically he's not actually here to see it. Either one works for me, and keeping it vague really enhances that element of faith and belief. Faith and belief being absolutely key ideas to One Piece, but especially in Egghead Island and especially with Kuma. Is no one going to talk about Dory and Broggy dancing to the Nika beat? There's actually a whole section in this chapter that I didn't talk about in the previous video. When Luffy eats and regains his stamina, there's a very curious moment where the drums of liberation kick in, and it seems to affect the sea beneath all the ships, as if the water is bobbing along to the beat rather violently. And that's where we see Dory and Broggy dancing, seemingly uncontrollably, and it's cool because they're both doing the sun god dance and Bonnie is watching them, which must be surreal because that is the dance that her father taught her. How do these giants know about the secret dance? And I really love that Dory and Broggy join in, because this beat seems to be like a call to action. They drop all of their concerns, including their ship being on fire, and just assume this state of maximum pure joy, which gives me chills because I can see a future where at some stage during some sort of final war, the drums of liberation activate, and then you see a whole army of giants breaking into dance, something that could create an earthquake of joy around the world. And that's initially what I thought this whole sea level business was. The dancing giants causing the massive ship to bob up and down, and that's having a knock-on effect of all the sea phenomena, but I'm not entirely sure. It could also be Luffy using his awakening to manipulate the water, probably unintentionally, or maybe it's that this particular drum beat is so powerful that it's the noise capable of vibrating and moving it. Or maybe it's even an after effect of the Iron Giant falling into the sea. That thing is colossal and it is going to cause waves. I'm really not sure, because what I want to say is that Dory and Broggy haven't seen a full powered Gear 5th Luffy, because he's been in this constant state of powering up and down, thanks to whatever filler food he can find along the way. But perhaps after the special feast prepared by the giant cook, Luffy is able to access something far more powerful. Again, I don't know though, this whole section is pretty vague. But at the moment, I'm choosing to adopt the philosophy of Dory and Broggy. I don't think they really know what's happening, but they're just happy to be part of it, and so am I. When they get to this part in the anime, I want the drums of liberation music for Bonnie to be synchronized metal guitar that matches Luffy's drums. Yeah, so that is the sort of thing that I would be very keen on. I mean, use whatever instruments you want, but I think it would be a huge missed opportunity to not turn this song into a two-piece, and have Bonnie's music add to the foundation that Luffy's beat provides. And then if we do go in a direction where more characters can somehow attain their most free forms, then we could eventually end up with a full orchestra and symphony of liberation. Shout out to Kizaru for still taking his big nap. So this isn't a joke. I'd actually forgotten that Kizaru was still in this arc. We haven't seen him since chapter 1111, which doesn't sound like it was too long ago, but we've had so many breaks, and those breaks have been pretty long as well, that the last time we saw him was actually in March, and now it's almost July, mate. So Kizaru really hasn't been at the forefront of my thoughts for a long time now. And I think he is pretty much done for the arc. However, there could be one last thing, which is a shot of him seeing both Luffy and Bonnie in these forms. This could still be, and probably is, a lot of copium on my part that I'm huffing, but I still don't believe that Kizaru is a lost cause. And if he sees both Luffy and Bonnie dancing to the beat of liberation, then that could be his come to faith moment and lead him to becoming an ally down the line. Because if not, then Kizaru is going to continue to be a very sad story as this broken man enters the final war just to get smacked down once again. Iron Giant going to the ocean floor isn't so bad if you believe that the ocean floor will be raised. That's very true. We shouldn't be too worried about old mate sinking, because eventually we'll just uncover him again. He'll say something like, that was a lovely bath, and then wait for a Joy Boy to rock up. Bonnie is all but confirmed to be the Straw Hat Pirate's apprentice crew member now, right? That is the eternal question. If it was to happen, it wouldn't be too surprising. As I've gone into in great length, Bonnie's whole story is about attaining freedom, and what better way to do that than to travel with the Joy Boy, the freest dude guy on the planet. But it could also go the exact opposite way. If Bonnie now has total freedom, then why would she bind herself to the Straw Hats? Luffy's freedom might not be her freedom, and Bonnie could just go off and do something else that she wants to do. And speaking of something else that I will say is that I don't feel the same way about Bonnie as I did about Yamato, when I was 100% convinced that Yamato would be joining next, because Yamato had something to do by taking on the Oden role in Luffy's crew. I don't feel the same need for Bonnie to be a crew member, particularly since achieving this form right now is achieving her dream. But look, since I was so wrong about Yamato, maybe we can also use that logic the same way and say that I'm equally as wrong about Bonnie. At the moment, I don't see her as a Straw Hat. I see her as more of a Kinemon or Trafalgar Law style ally who wants to travel with the crew for a bit, sure. But that Straw Hat status is increasingly difficult to get, and remember, we're still keeping a seat warm for Vivi as well. The Iron Giant attacked the Celestial Dragon City 200 years ago. So does that mean Joy Boy appeared 200 years ago? That's something that I wanted to talk about because this chapter has opened up a brand new possibility for that scenario. Because it has been implied that the Gomu Gomu no Mi was eluding the world government and the world in general potentially ever since the days of Joy Boy. It became a fruit unknown that no one questions it because to the best of our knowledge there is no recent historical figure that made a mark with it. But then again, the Iron Giant awakening 200 years ago, it must have had a beat of liberation behind it. So maybe it was a previous user of Bonnie's Devil Fruit who stumbled into the Nika form by having the ambition, imagination, and belief to see a future where they are the most free. By the way, that's something that I think is incredibly important to flag, and a huge part of why Bonnie using this distorted future hits extra hard, because it means that Bonnie actually has to believe that there is a future where she is free. And that's not something that Bonnie has had the luxury of believing for her entire life. She was kept indoors all the time as a child, and as now a slightly older child sailing the world, she hasn't exactly been free either. She's been constantly pursued and captured and pursued and captured, and we were at a point where Bonnie had no hope of freedom. She could not see a future where that was possible. The beginning of Egghead Island was her lowest point, where all she could do was return to the island to take revenge on the man brain that ruined everything, and that's why this is such a massive step and so satisfying to me. To enter this form, Bonnie needs to be capable of imagining and believing the future that her father envisioned for her. It's a fantastic emotional release. But back to the Iron Giant, maybe it was neither Luffy nor Bonnie's Devil Fruit. Perhaps it was even a third fruit capable of replicating that effect. Because there are a litany of Devil Fruits in this series that right here and now are capable of using Gear 5th. Now that Bonnie has confirmed this is an option, then this could unleash a flood of freedom around the world, and we're going to go through a ton of users who can replicate this power in a video coming out very soon.